Of all the systems that Sega have released, none have had the redemption arc quite like the Sega Saturn. For years it was the odd one out, misunderstood, overlooked or just plain ignored by most gamers outside of Japan. But lately, that story has been changing. More and more gamers, collectors, retro fans and curious newcomers are finally giving the Saturn a chance. Whether they missed out on it first time or just wrote it off in favour of the PlayStation and or Nintendo 64, they're now picking up a console for the very first time and discovering just why so many of us loved it back in the day and still love it now. So if you're one of those people who recently joined Club Saturn, or you're thinking about picking one up, welcome to the club. Here are 10 essential games to kick off your journey and show you exactly why this system has earned your long overdue respect. Putting this list together wasn't easy. There are plenty of games that I personally love that didn't make the cut, but this isn't about my favourites. Instead, I focused on a balanced mix of genres and experiences that I think any first time Saturn owner should try, because a list that's based on nostalgia or bias wouldn't do the system or you any favours. So let's get into it. Sega Rally Championship isn't just one of the best games on the Saturn, it's one of the greatest arcade racing games ever made, full stop. Arriving in arcades in 1994, Sega Rally delivered a revolutionary handling model that captured the feel of tearing through gravel, dirt and tarmac like nothing else at the time. When the Saturn port landed in 1995, it didn't just bring the same arcade magic home, it improved on it with enhanced handling and terrain physics. And while it wasn't a pixel perfect conversion, it more than made up for it with how incredibly right it felt to play, providing a gameplay experience that surpasses the arcade original. What sets Sega Rally apart is its soul. Each car has weight, each surface affects the grip, and mastering every single corner becomes an obsession. The Saturn version, somehow without any form of rumble or force feedback, lets players feel which terrain they're driving on and how their car reacts to it. Sure, it only has a handful of tracks and cars, but don't let that put you off. This is pure distilled arcade racing perfection. Every lap feels different, every corner is an opportunity to improve, and chasing those personal best times becomes endlessly addictive. Trust me, I know. For new Saturn owners, Sega Rally is absolutely essential because it showcases the console's strengths. The gorgeous 3D graphics, timeless addictive arcade gameplay, and those unbeatable blue Sega skies. It's an experience that still holds up beautifully today, it will hold up beautifully tomorrow, and is a shining example of why the majority of Sega's Model 2 ports made the Saturn something truly special. If you're stepping into the world of Sega Saturn, Virtua Fighter 2 is absolutely essential. Released in 1995, this isn't just a great fighting game, it's a technical showcase, a statement of intent by Sega. They took the most advanced 3D fighting game of the era and somehow crammed it onto the Saturn with stunning results. At a time when developers were still coming to terms with 3D graphics on console, Virtua Fighter 2 runs at a rock solid 60 frames per second in the Saturn's high resolution mode. Character models move with a sense of realism and fluidity never seen before, and while the 3D backgrounds of the arcade were replaced by a mixture of 2D and 3D effects, it tricked the most sceptical of onlooker. Gameplay wise, Virtua Fighter 2 is a fighting game that's as deep as it is accessible. Every character feels distinct, every punch, kick and throw demands precise timing, and the depth here is phenomenal, yet it never feels overwhelming for newcomers. I mean, my best mate Sam often beat me with a button bashing Jackie while I tried to get my thumbs around the D-pad for one of Akira's shoulder charges. Virtua Fighter 2 captures Sega's arcade spirit perfectly. It's easy to pick up, but mastering it becomes a lifelong pursuit. And that soundtrack, timeless. Ride the Tiger, the theme of Akira, is one of the greatest pieces of gaming music ever composed. For new Saturn owners, Virtua Fighter 2 isn't just a game, it's a rite of passage. It shows you what the Saturn could do when developers truly understood the hardware, and it delivers gameplay that's just as satisfying today as it was back then. Whether you're playing friends or battling through the ranking mode, Virtua Fighter 2 still feels sharp, responsive and incredibly rewarding. If you want to understand why Sega fans speak about the Saturn with such reverence, this is where you start. Few games capture the imagination quite like Panzer Dragoon. As one of the Saturn's launch titles, at least in the US, it wasn't just a showpiece for Sega's new 32-bit hardware, it was a glimpse into a whole new world. Right from that opening cinematic, with its sweeping shots of vast deserts and strange creatures, Panzer Dragoon immediately sets itself apart as something special. At its core, it's an on-rail shooter, but it's the atmosphere and the artistry that elevates it into something timeless. You ride your majestic blue dragon across desolate landscapes, locking onto swarms of enemies with your reticle and unleashing devastating homing attacks. The controls are tight, intuitive and ahead of their time, with a full 360-degree view system that keeps you constantly alert and immersed. What really makes Panzer Dragoon sing though is its world. Inspired by the works of the artist Mobius, the game creates a stunning, melancholy, post-apocalyptic universe filled with mystery, all backed by a haunting orchestral cinematic soundtrack. For new Saturn owners, Panzer Dragoon is a must-play because it shows the Saturn's ambition. It wasn't just about arcade thrills, it was about creating a rich, immersive experience that stuck with you long after you put the controller down. It might be a relatively short game by today's standards, but every moment is dripping with atmosphere. And while many will recommend its sequel, there's just something special about the first game. Zwei may have the scope and the scale, but the original Panzer Dragoon just oozes atmosphere. Panzer Dragoon is a vital piece of Sega's legacy, and it's a ride you won't soon forget. Nights into Dreams isn't just a game, it's an experience. Developed by Sonic Team at the height of their creative power, Nights was Sega's bold statement that the Saturn could deliver an experience beyond that of a typical platformer. And what a statement it was. Players take control of either Claris or Elliot, two young dreamers who find themselves in the fantastical world of Nightopia. At the start of each stage, players guide Claris or Elliot into the Idia Palace, freeing Knights, and the fun begins. Players must chain links by collecting blue orb chips, flying through loops and maintaining high speeds. This creates a fast-paced rhythm of collecting orbs, timing perfect loops and optimising your flight path to rack up the highest scores. It's a brilliant system that rewards precision, creativity and speed, making each playthrough feel fresh and competitive. Visually, Knights is up there with the Saturn's best, with colourful, fluid 3D environments and a visual style that still feels fresh today. The soundtrack is just as iconic, a soaring emotional score that perfectly captures the dreamlike nature of the world. For a new Saturn owner, Nights into Dreams is an absolute must-play. It's a bold, imaginative title that showcases Sega's ability to create worlds that are both innovative and unforgettable. For the optimal experience, pair Nights with the 3D analog controller for extra fluidity. But don't worry if you can't get your hands on one just yet. The game still plays brilliantly with the stock controller. Virtua Cop was a revolutionary step forward for light gun shooters and for Sega. Released in 1994, it took everything players loved about the genre, fast-paced action and intense shootouts, and turned it on its head. The game replaced the typical scrolling 2D pop-up enemies from the likes of Lethal Enforcers and Operation Wolf, including a more dynamic cinematic viewpoint with sweeping camera angles and jaw-dropping set pieces. Each stage in Virtua Cop feels like its own interactive action movie, with explosions, dramatic moments and enemies jumping out from all corners. You step into the shoes of law enforcement officers Michael Hardy and James Cools, taking down criminals across various locations. As you progress through the 3 stages, you'll need to dodge incoming fire and take down the bad guys with perfect precision. You can choose the one-shot Justice Shot, or aim for the 3-hit Robocop style combo. Whatever way you choose to play, it's extremely satisfying. Interestingly, Virtua Cop was developed by a team of rookies at Sega, some of whom had never completed their first project with the company. Supervised by the legendary Yu Suzuki, the team worked tirelessly to ensure that the game played as smoothly with a controller as it did with the Virtua Gun, or Sega Stunner for our American friends. Suzuki's guidance ensured that Virtua Cop could be enjoyed by both arcade regulars and console players alike. It pushed the boundaries of light gun shooters and rightly takes its place alongside Sega Rally and Virtua Fighter 2 as one of the big three. Dragon Force is one of those games that really shows off the Saturn's sprite pushing power, and is the kind of experience that proves the Saturn wasn't just about arcade games. Developed by J-Force, a company founded by former Wolf Team developers but finished by Sega after J-Force went bankrupt, Dragon Force is a strategy RPG unlike anything else on the console, offering epic real-time battles and an addictive quest for domination. At its heart, you're tasked with uniting the continent of Legendra, choosing one of 8 unique rulers, each with their own armies, personalities and storylines. But where Dragon Force truly shines is its incredible large-scale battles, hundreds of soldiers clashing on screen in real time with dazzling spells and cinematic duels adding to the spectacle. It's a jaw-dropping experience even today, and at the time it felt unmatched. Despite the scale, Dragon Force is remarkably approachable. Managing your kingdom, forming alliances, upgrading generals and plotting battlefield strategies feels natural and intuitive. It strikes a perfect balance between accessibility and depth. It's easy to get into, but offers countless hours of fun for those who really want to master it. For new Saturn owners, Dragon Force is an absolute must. It's something different from the more stereotypical Saturn experiences. Sadly, it is one of the more expensive titles these days. Hey, what's different when it comes to retro gaming? But at the Sega guys, you know that we recommend a Saru or a Fenrir ODE solution. So regardless of how you get your hands on Dragon Force, make sure that you do. You'll experience one of the Saturn's true crown jewels, and you won't regret it. Street Fighter Alpha 2 was a game changer for 2D fighters. When it hit Saturn in 1996, Capcom had taken everything that made the original Alpha great and improved on it. The animation is buttery smooth. At the time, it felt like you were controlling a Japanese anime movie. The soundtrack is incredible, and the controls are tight as ever, especially on the Japanese Mark I or Western Mark II Saturn controller. The 13 fighters from the first game make a return, including fan favourites like Ryu, Ken and Chun-Li. But 5 new faces are added: Sakura, Gen, Rolento, Zangief and Dhalsim. Every fighter has their own unique style, making this roster feel as varied and exciting as ever. But it's not just about the fighting. The stages themselves are an absolute treat for Capcom fans. Take Guy's stage as an example. It's set in Metro City, and you've got Hagar, Cody and Jessica from Final Fight in the background, along with a bunch of Mad Gear members lurking around. It's that kind of attention to detail that makes this game stand out. Thanks to the Saturn's 2D capabilities, this right here is the definitive home port of the time. If you love Street Fighter, or just 2D fighters in general, you can't go wrong with Street Fighter Alpha 2. Sure, many people will champion Street Fighter 03, but given its Japanese only release and reliance on the 4MB RAM card, Alpha 2 is the more accessible and enjoyable experience for new Saturn owners. Burning Rangers is a real Saturn classic, and for good reason. Developed by Sonic Team, the same geniuses behind Nights into Dreams, this unique action game sees you play as a member of the Burning Rangers, choosing between Sho or Tillis, each with their own unique abilities and personality. As part of this elite rescue team, you're tasked with rescuing people from increasingly volatile blazes in crumbling buildings. It's best described as a futuristic firefighter simulator mixed with that signature Sega arcade charm, and it's nothing like what you'd come to expect from a typical action game. In the thick of the action, the team turn to Chris, the sharp and capable navigator who is accessible at any time. She provides players with crucial advice on where to turn during blazes, guiding you through the maze-like environments and ensuring you don't get lost while rescuing survivors. The game mixes frantic action with strategic decision making, requiring you to think on your feet and use the environments to your advantage. When talking about his influence for the game, Yuji Naka said, "We wanted to create a game where you could just rescue people. Nowadays there's so many games where you just kill people. So we wanted to make a rescue game. In addition, right from the start, it seemed that fire was the most appropriate way to create that sensation of fear and tension. So in the end, we combined these two elements. And this unique philosophy shines through in every aspect of the game, making it a breath of fresh air in a sea of combat-heavy titles." Visually, Burning Rangers was ahead of its time, although some claim the Saturn's hardware limited its ambition. The vibrant 3D environments are full of life, the characters are bursting with personality, and the flame effects are just gorgeous, with some of the best transparencies seen on the Saturn. The soundtrack, a mix of jazz and upbeat tracks, is an absolute belter, with compositions by Takanobu Mitsuyoshi and Tomoko Sasaki. The latter worked on Ristar and Nights, and did the vocals for the Japanese version of my favourite Burning Rangers song, the wonderful I Just Smile. The whole package oozes that Sonic Team magic, innovation, unique gameplay, and just full of heart. For new Saturn owners, Burning Rangers is a must play because it's one of the system's most ambitious, memorable games, especially as it came at the very end of the Saturn's Western life. Bulk Slash is one of those hidden gems on the Saturn that definitely deserves more recognition. Released in 1997, this third-person action mecha simulation game is often overlooked. Developed by CA Production and published by Hudson Soft, Bulk Slash has all the right elements to make it stand out, from intense combat to a compelling storyline. You play as Crest Dolly, a fighter pilot for the SDF, tasked with taking down Aloy Gardona, the military chief on the planet Blau, who's trying to overthrow his oppressors. The game takes place in a futuristic world where Gardona and his supporters are plotting a coup, and it's up to you to stop them. The gameplay is split into 7 stages, each with a boss fight at the end. You'll battle both airborne and ground-based enemies in your transforming mech, using a range of weapons in the process. The action is fast-paced and strategic, requiring quick reflexes and tactical thinking, with some of the absolute best boss battles that you'll come across. A standout feature of Bulk Slash is the Management Intelligence Support System, or MIS. As you progress, you'll recruit navigators hidden throughout the stages. Each navigator brings their own unique abilities to help you, and they level up with experience, affecting the game's ending. You can also switch between navigators during missions, giving you even more flexibility in combat. Adding to the game's appeal though is the localised, really professionally done English fan translation. The entire game was thoroughly localised, including menus, in-game conversations and even spoken dialogue, with a team and voiceover cast featuring Danthrax from our brothers at Sega Saturn Shiro. This translation not only makes it the absolute best way to play the game, but it ensures that English speakers can fully enjoy the storyline without missing any of its charm. With its engaging combat, deep gameplay mechanics, a polished translation, Bulk Slash is an underappreciated classic on Saturn that's well worth discovering. Die Hard Arcade on the Sega Saturn is a full throttle, no holds barred action experience that feels like someone shoved the Die Hard movie into an arcade machine and cranked it up to 11. Released in 1997 by Sega AM1, the game lets you step into the shoes of John McClane or Chris Thompson, or Bruno Dellinger and Cindy Holiday in the Japanese version, fighting your way through waves of enemies to rescue hostages from terrorists who've taken over a skyscraper. It's a simple premise, but the action is anything but. You'll be using your fists, your feet and a ton of weapons, from household items like brooms to high-powered missile launchers and submachine guns. It's chaotic, over-the-top fun, with each level offering a mix of classic beat-em-up combat and QTE moments. The gameplay is all about mixing up attacks and using the environment to your advantage. While the movie has McClane face off against the iconic Hans Gruber, Die Hard Arcade sees players face off against Wolf, White Fang, Hongo and his gang. Thanks to the arcade version running on the Sega Titan video board, the Saturn version is an arcade perfect experience. For gamers who grew up on the Mega Drive, Die Hard Arcade will definitely scratch that Streets of Rage itch in new Saturn owners. So if you're in the mood for fast-paced side-scrolling arcade beat-em-up action, Die Hard Arcade on the Saturn is a must-play.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
So there we have it, the 10 games that, in my opinion, every brand new Sega Saturn owner should play first. As I said at the start of the video, I had to take personal bias aside and recommend titles from as many genres as possible, showcasing Saturn's strengths to make it shine. It would have been easy for me to recommend Daytona USA, but newcomers may not have been able to see past the lower frame rate and clipping polygons in order to see how amazing the arcade perfect handling is. Likewise, Last Bronx with its enhanced use of VDP2 to create near 3D looking backgrounds, but it didn't have the impact or the audience that Virtua Fighter 2 did, and didn't want to take up another spot with another 3D fighter. I hope you can appreciate what I tried to do with this list, but hey, let me know in the comments what your 10 Saturn games would be if a friend or someone you know told you they'd just bought a Saturn. As always, thanks for watching. This has been James the Segaholic of the Sega Guys, and until next time, we'll see you on the Sega side.